All right, hello everybody. Welcome to my session, So You Want to Build a Data Mesh. I'm assuming everybody is here because they want to build a data mesh, yes? Or at least you're interested in how you might go about it. So I've had the opportunity in the past to work with different companies who were implementing DBT Mesh, and I learned so much from those engagements, from the amazing, intelligent people that I was working with, both on the consultancy side and the client side. And I also started thinking that things could go a lot smoother if we had a grounding philosophy of data mesh. All right, so we are going to approach implementing DBT mesh through the perspective of this is a way to implement data mesh. Now, we can't do this completely, right? I want to set the expectation we are not going to be able to completely follow Zhamak Dehghani's original vision because of the limits of the product, mainly decentralization versus centralization. But it provides enough of that grounding philosophy that it can help guide how you implement it and hopefully avoid some timely, costly mistakes. All right. So we have a very packed agenda to get through. I really hope I get through it in the next 30 minutes. We're going to start with some introductions. I'll introduce myself. I'm going to ask y'all some questions. Please raise your hand. And then we're going to go through each of the 4 principles of data mesh. That's domain ownership, data as a product, self-serve data platform, and federated computational governance. And we're going to have specific tips for what you can do in DBT to follow each of those principles. And then at the very end, we're going to touch on people and process. That's the squishy stuff. That was the main topic of my peer exchange last year. This year, we're going to focus more on the technical implementation within DBT. Hopefully, we'll have time for questions at the end. If we do not, come find me. All right, so hi, everybody. My name is Jenna Jordan. I am a senior analytics engineer with Ratio PBC. Ratio is a small consultancy that works with state-level health and human services departments on DBT projects, as well as generally modern software and data implementations. Before that, though, until May of this year, I was with Analytics 8, and my experiences at Analytics 8 are informing what I'm going to be talking about today. All right, so time for y'all to introduce yourselves to me. I would like you to raise your hand, please, if right now you have a functioning DBT mesh in operation with multiple projects that depend on each other. Ooh, we got a couple. Okay, so my expectation for y'all is you can take home like one thing that you want to change and implement. I also want you to come find me and tell me what I'm missing, right? Because I'm limited by my experiences. I want to know what y'all have learned so we can redistribute and share that knowledge back. All right, raise your hands if you are actively working towards a DBT mesh right now, and you're in the process of figuring out how to get it implemented. Okay, a few more hands. All right, for y'all, this is going to be more like an intervention. I want to course correct some of the problems you're likely to encounter. But also, maybe you're already doing everything perfectly, in which case, amazing job. I don't think anybody's done that before. All right, so raise your hand if you have a single DBT project, but you are interested in the future in moving towards multiple projects. All right, that's a good number more of y'all. All right, so I want y'all to listen and decide, do I actually need multiple projects? And if so, what do I need to make my single project look like now in order to have a much smoother, successful implementation? All right, and final question. Are you just interested and curious about data mesh? This should be everybody else. Yeah, no, okay. I feel like not everybody has raised their hands yet. I missed some categories. All right, so next set of questions. We have some limitations around DBT Mesh in that it really works best if you are a DBT platform customer. So who here is an Enterprise or Enterprise Plus plan on DBT platform, DBT cloud. Great, you're gonna have the smoothest ride. Raise your hand if you are on a team plan. Okay, you guys might wanna think about upgrading if you wanna do this. All right, and then raise your hand if you are just a DBT core shop, DBT core only. Ooh, a good number of y'all. Okay, things are gonna be a little bit rockier, but you do not lack hope. Okay, there are some options out there for you. I'd encourage you to look at the DBT Loom project. And when it comes to orchestration, Dagster does have a way to orchestrate multiple projects with bidirectional dependencies. So you're gonna have to roll your own, but you can still do the thing. Okay. So let's talk about what data mesh is and how DBT mesh fits in. So data mesh is a socio-technical approach. I'm going to emphasize socio and technical, both of them, to distributed data management at scale. And it can provide a driving philosophy for how to evolve your data practice. I'm going to directly quote Jenna in her book now. Data mesh is a decentralized socio-technical approach to share, access, and manage analytical data in a complex and large-scale environment, both within and across organizations. So, important notes here. It's about analytical data, not operational data, although we're trying to bring them closer together. And it is an approach, not an architecture, okay? So, it is part of your organization's data strategy as a whole, and is going to inform both your organizational operating model, that's the socio, as well as the enterprise architecture, that's the technical. All right, let's talk about DBT mesh. So DBT mesh is a set of DBT features supported by different DBT products that empower data teams to work independently and collaboratively. And it provides some of the tooling for distributed data management at scale. All right. So, and one thing I want to note here is while the product name choice of DBT mesh may make you think that DBT approached this from the perspective of this is how we're implementing data mesh, I have been told that is not the case. It is a natural evolution of some of the problems organizations were encountering with DBT projects at scale. However, explicit lines have been drawn in the past between DBT mesh and data mesh, most notably by DBT Labs resident architect, Hope Watson. She has an excellent video out there I encourage you to look up. All right, so the primary foundational text for this talk is the Data Mesh book by Jenna. This book was published in 2022, but she first started publishing on this in 2019. I've got 2 blog posts up there that were published on her colleague Martin Fowler's blog. Those are freely available. Go read them. They provide a lot of the essentials. But if you really want to dive deep, I'd encourage you to check out the Data Mesh book. All right. Around the time when it was published, it hit the Gartner hype cycle. I don't know who remembers this, but it was declared dead on arrival. It was in the innovation trigger phase, but predicted to become obsolete before reaching the final phase of plateau of productivity. We'll see if they revise that when the next hype cycle comes out, because there's been a lot of activity around data mesh this year. Jenna new company, Next Data, came out with Next Data OS. That was in the spring of this year. And so there's been some activity around data mesh that's getting a lot more hype. There's also grown quite a community around data mesh. We've got other significant authors. I'll point out JGP as one of the influential figures within the data mesh community. He co-wrote Implementing Data Mesh, has a new book coming out on data products, and has also published through the BIDL project specs for data contracts and data products. All right, so why are data mesh and DBT mesh a natural fit? The main thing is that they are united by a foundational mission of bringing software engineering best practices to data. Okay, here are some of the texts that have inspired Jenna work. We've got domain-driven design, that's principle 1. Inspired, which is about data as products, and thinking in systems, which goes towards last principle of federated computational governance. But we've also got some divergence. Data mesh is all about decentralization. It's a bit hard for a single company to produce products and sell something. It's all about decentralization. So in the areas where we are going to depart from the data mesh vision, it's around that necessity of having a centralized platform. All right, let's go through the 4 principles of data mesh. I want to emphasize that although Jenna now has a platform for data mesh in the book, she emphasized that this is a tool and tech agnostic approach. Okay, so that means that as long as you're following the 4 principles, all of them together, united, not just one, not just your favorite one, then you can implement data mesh with your tool of choice, which I'm assuming is probably DBT since you're here at this conference. All right. So the 4 principles, as a reminder, are domain ownership, data as a product, self-serve data platform, and federated computational governance. So we're going to go through how all 4 of these principles can be implemented within DBT and why you need all 4 of them together, not just one. Data as a product is like the most popular one. All right, let's talk about domain ownership. This is your first stumbling block. Okay, it requires a wholesale reorganization of your company. If you have not done that yet, you're probably not ready for data mesh. All right, so you need leadership and executive buy-in and long-term investment in data mesh as a strategy if you want to have domain-based teams. Okay, so forget about having a central data team that gets all the requests. They do all of the data work. We're no longer having a centralized data team. We have data professionals, data product developers, data product owners embedded in the domain teams with all of that domain context. Okay, so they are responsible. These domain teams are responsible for curating, maintaining, and sharing the data that they are most familiar with. So if you are currently in an organization with a central single data team, you need to think about whether you can actually implement data mesh. And if you want to get there, you need to start talking to leadership and convincing them to reorganize the company. That is a really difficult conversation. Okay, so that's first stumbling block. Maybe some of y'all are like, I don't know why I'm here anymore. I can't do that. But maybe you'll pick up some useful tips along the way. So the recommendation when it comes to DBT is pretty simple. You need to align your DBT projects to your domains. Now, this is the first year. 2025 is probably the first year that was really possible to have DBT projects aligned with your domains. DBT Mesh came out, was announced at Coalesce in 2023. However, it had a very big limitation. You could not have bidirectional dependencies between projects, right? Basically, your projects had to be in a DAG as well as the models. And so this forced you into a hub and spoke model. You've got your central data team maintaining your central DBT project, and then domain teams could get models from there, but they can't send anything back. And if you try to send things to each other, you're going to start arguing over who can depend on who, right? So in 2024, this limitation was instantly recognized by the DBT team. They started working on it after product feedback as well. So we get bidirectional dependencies in 2024, but we have no way to orchestrate it. okay? And if you can't orchestrate it, you really don't want to move towards having bidirectional project dependencies in your DBT mesh, okay? So this is why anybody at the keynote, who else was excited as I was to see state-aware orchestration? Okay, the implication of state-aware orchestration is that you can now do data mesh in DBT. Like, it is that important and fundamental. But of course, it is attached to Fusion, so you need to be on Fusion, and it's not yet GA, so it comes with all of those risks. But still, 2025, first year you can really do a data mesh with DBT because now you can finally have domain-oriented projects. All right, now let's talk about y'all, your organizations. There are generally like 2 profiles or a spectrum for organizations that want to implement DBT. So we've got our DBT veterans. These are the organizations that have been using DBT for years. Their model counts have ballooned into the thousands, maybe the tens of thousands. Their DAG looks like a spaghetti monster. All right, and they are trying to move towards a DBT mesh because it is essential. They cannot operate this way anymore. Okay, this is the motivation for why DBT mesh exists in the first place. Second organization, they are new to DBT. They want to be in a data mesh, and they see DBT as the way to actually get there. And the inclination here is instantly, we want to have multiple projects. We want to have a DBT mesh of projects, but they're brand new to DBT. Okay, so who sees their organization somewhere on this spectrum? Yeah, okay. Who's like, I want those mini projects. I want them right now. Oh, not as many hands as I thought. Okay, so if you want those mini projects right now, I'm gonna tell you to stop, wait, pause, take a breath. We need to get a single project in shape and ready first, okay? DBT mesh introduces good friction, but it's still friction. And you want to get through all the friction of implementing DBT in the first place before you introduce new friction that comes with multiple projects and cross-project dependencies. All right, so how do we do that? What's our best approach to get towards a single project that is ready to smoothly get into multiple? All right, we're first going to implement DBT groups, okay? Use groups to draft out your domains. You're going to then align your project folder structure to the groups. Usually your top level folder structure is like staging, intermediate, marts. We're gonna flip that. We're gonna have domain-based folders at the top. And then we're gonna have the structure for each of those domains inside of those folders, and do that for your models, your macros, your test folder, all of them, okay? Then you're gonna update your model access. Your default, you want to switch to private, right? Because you're still in a single project, but you want to mimic what it's gonna be like when you're in multiple projects. So you wanna switch the default configuration to private and then figure out which models are your public models and switch those. Those are usually going to be your marts, okay? You may run into some trouble here and get some access errors. This is a good thing. You want to figure this out now while you're in a single project, not after you've moved to many projects, okay? Also, socio-technical, right? Let's talk about the socio bit. Managing a DBT project is hard. There's a lot that goes into it, and that is a skill set that people need to develop, okay? Each of your domain teams need to develop that skill set for themselves. And so we want to gradually transition those responsibilities over, okay? We're going to enforce the domain ownership and PRs with a code owners file. That means that only people in that domain team can approve changes to models in their folders. And we're also going to give them more responsibility over orchestration, although hopefully with state-aware orchestration, that's not so necessary. Okay. And then when they're ready, domain teams can spin out into their own DBT projects. Now you may be thinking, I want to get rid of that single central project. Don't. This is your incubator. You want to get new domains in and have an easy landing place for them to start building their own DBT projects. Use that original project as that incubator, okay? It's an easy way in. All right, data as a product. I'm also running up on time. We're gonna get through this real fast, guys. 8 characteristics of a successful data product are discoverable, addressable, understandable, trustworthy and useful, natively accessible, interoperable, valuable on its own, and secure. We are going to go through each of these and the DBT features you need to consider in order to have meet each of these 8 characteristics. All right, so discoverable. This means when you are in DBT catalog, when you are looking for another domain's data product, if you search for it, it should come up. Please help people find your model, okay? Your public data product model. We can do this by adding metadata. Metadata is added in the YAML file. And also think like a librarian, okay? Think what your catalogs are like at your library. You've got a controlled vocabulary that really helps people search. I want a science fiction book. I know the term to search for is science fiction, okay? So meta-config lets us add whatever metadata we want. You can come up with a custom for your organization set of standardized metadata and house it within the meta-config. And please write descriptions, y'all. All right, addressable. So the idea of addressable is basically like there is a location where it is. Within the database, we know there's a connection between the model and the database. The problem is, it's really easy to change this. You just change the model name, and it's a whole new location. This is not good. We need it to stay in one place. How do we accomplish this? Model contracts. Once you have an enforced model contract in place, you cannot make that change. This is a good thing. We want more governance for our data product models. Once you have a contract in place, if you want to make changes, you have to use versions, model versions. It's a necessary next step, or else your models are never going to change. And then let's say that you eventually decide to decommission that. You cannot just delete it. It cannot just disappear, right? And this is enforced within DBT and through your CI jobs. You need to set a deprecation date so that you can warn the rest of the ecosystem this specific model or this specific version of a model is going to go away as of this date. Please stop depending on it. And then after that date has passed, then you can delete the model. All right. The goal here is self-service to as large of extent as you can get, okay? So we want really good documentation. Doc blocks are a really nice way to have nicely formatted, longer documentation. Also, dry documentation, okay? And we want to have really, really good descriptions. Cannot emphasize that enough. And in fact, I will make the recommendation that you hire somebody whose sole job is to write the descriptions. Hire a documentation specialist. Please, your engineers will thank you. All right, trustworthy and useful. We need to have SLOs and SLAs on our data products, okay? And then how can we actually ensure that these are met? Through data tests and freshness checks, okay? And we've got freshness configs now. Very excited for that, if you remember from the keynote. And for implementing data tests, go beyond just those 4 standard ones that DBT gives you. DBT utils, DBT expectations, and elementary are all packages you should be checking out. They are excellent, and they can get you so much further. All right, natively accessible. The idea here is that an analyst, wherever, can get this data in the format that they prefer, be that a database table or spreadsheets or a Power BI report, wherever they want. There are some limits here, but there are 2 key features that help make this more possible, and that is cross-platform data mesh with iceberg materializations and the semantic layer. Okay, so semantic layer means you can access that data product through your BI tool of choice. Iceberg means that you can access that data product with whatever supports Iceberg, which more and more are, but that's as close as we can get for now at getting it outside of the database without using external tools. Okay, semantic layer can also help us with things being interoperable, but again, this is socio-technical. People are important here. You need to agree on some naming standards. You need to design your data model in such a way that your products can work together. Okay, so I want to know what can be joined together. The semantic layer helps with that, but also column names help with that. And also, like, you know, we can't currently have a lineage view, but for your star schema. But you can put diagrams in your doc blocks, guys. So like diagram out your star schema, put it in your documentation. Okay, valuable on its own. A data product must be valuable on its own. One key point here, you cannot lift and shift your Kimball star schema models. A fact is not valuable on its own. It has to be joined to other things before people can use it. So for our data product models, which can follow a Kimball star schema art, you want to use the one big table approach. I know you don't hear that very often, but you want to pre-join so it's easy for people to use. Okay, also, your data product is not just your table in the database. It is everything that you need in order to successfully use that data product. It's your SQL file, it's your YAML file, it's your markdown file with your doc blocks, it's the data itself, it's the lineage, the whole entire thing that leads up to the actual final data product. So it's all packaged together. Joar calls this a data quantum. And then secure. Use grants, please. If you want to go beyond grants, Terraform is a great way to implement a more organizationally complex security policy. Okay, I'm gonna shout out Katie Claiborne's talk from last year's Coalesce. She gave an excellent talk about how to use dbt and Terraform together. So we need to follow all of these requirements, and that's really hard. We can't do it all at once. So we're going to do it iteratively. And in order to know where you are on that iteration, you're going to score your marts. Okay? Come up with some standard to score your marts. Make sure everybody knows it. Put it in the YAML files as metadata. And make sure everybody knows, what does a 1-star mart mean? What does a 5-star mart mean? Okay, we are running out of time, y'all. Principle 3. Here are some of the dbt products that can help you get towards successful data products. Let's talk about principle 3 for a second. Self-serve data platform is not about self-serve analytics. It's about enabling domain teams to independently create data products for themselves, right? So it's not about your end users, it's about the producers. It should be a self-serve platform for the data product producers, okay? These are some of the tools that make that really easy in dbt platform. I've got 3 more tips for you in order to make this as easy as possible for your domain teams. 1, create an internal dbt package. You can put so much useful stuff in there. All the macros that you want every domain team to use, unified, put them in the dbt package, your internal dbt package. 2, make it as easy as possible to create new dbt projects. Have a standardized template. Socio bit here. If that template updates, think about how are you going to propagate those updates to pre-existing dbt projects. And lastly, create some projects specifically for learning. There are some excellent courses out there in the dbt course catalog that require you to follow along in order to learn. Pre-build out those projects at the starting point. So it's as easy as possible for one person to start learning. Okay, I know I'm really going fast through this, but I have a bonus for you at the end. Okay, principle 4, federated computational governance. 2 important things here, federated and computational. If you don't remember what federated means, think US government is federated, federal. We've got only when it's necessary policies at the global level. This should just be about interoperability. And then computational, these policies are in code. These standards are in code, and you are enforcing them automatically. How are we enforcing these policies automatically? With CI jobs, right? So thinking in systems talks about feedback loops and your leverage points. So your CI/CD process is a feedback loop. Your CI job is the most important feedback loop. Okay? Your CI job at a minimum should make sure that merges to main don't break your project, but you can do more. Okay? If you use the DBT project evaluator package, you can run tests on the project itself and make sure that any merges to main are complying with the policies, the standards that you have set for your project. And it's doing it in an automated fashion, and you can configure it. You can also build on the project evaluator and make custom tests. You get some pretty cool models out of the DBT project evaluator, and you can essentially, in your package, right, your internal DBT package, turn it into a full-blown project, and then build models off of the DBT project evaluator models that go across the mesh, query all of the projects across the mesh, and you can build tests to test things on a mesh-wide level, right? It can be very, very cool. And then your internal DBT package turned into a project that becomes kind of a monitoring project. You can query the state of the mesh in a permanent place, right? We don't want to be querying CI schemas, so turn your package into a project. All right, real fast at the end, people and process, that's the squishy stuff. I hope you have learned throughout this talk that you have a lot of decisions to make, and that no one person can make this decision by themselves. No one team can centrally dictate these decisions. So what do you need to do? You need to convene your mesh. Get your data product owners, get your governance folks, get everybody together from every single project and figure out how you're going to make these decisions. Write a process map, diagram it out. You can iterate on that process map, right? But figure out what your process is going to look like and start following it. Make those decisions, make them iteratively, one at a time, okay? And let people slowly learn how to operate within a mesh. Okay? All right. Now, I went through this really fast, but I have a lot of material on this, and so I've got a blog post that I will be publishing today that is all of this content. To give you a hint, it is 10,000 words. So if you would like details that I could not get to today, if you would like links to some of the resources I talked about today, to DBT docs, go to the blog post first. It has a lot of answers in there and more detail. And you can find that at my website, which is just jennajordan.me. Also, I'm in the community Slack. I'm on LinkedIn and Blue Sky. If you have any questions, please come find me. I will be more than happy to talk to y'all. I find this topic absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for staying the extra few minutes.